is an extremely practical information. This is literally a how-to. But I will tell you that I really, really struggled with this section. And I still do, but I at least understand it now. Part of my struggle was trying to follow the logic in the Foundation for Inner Peace version. Trying to interpret what he was telling me. The purple cover edition has very, very useful footnotes that clarifies things immensely in my perception. I eventually got it, but literally I probably taught this section more than any other in the book. And I did that as part of the process of doing that was actually rewriting this section for myself multiple times. We've rewritten it and put it in a handout, presented it in class, because that's what I needed to do to make sense of it when I only had access to the Foundation for Inner Peace version. Fortunately, we no longer have that limitation. Before we dive into that material, I want to read a couple of quotes that are relevant, because the practical divine guidance is intended as the how-to manual for how do we get to the real world? How do we experience peace and joy and abundance in our lives? Of course, it teaches us we have to change who we're making decisions with. And we talked about that 2 weeks ago in the class that I led on the power of decision. At that time, I was struggling with, I really wanted to include some of this material, but it was already so long of a section that I had to let that go. But here we are. So, you don't need to follow this, but I just wanted to visit a couple of quotes from earlier in the text. You will first dream of peace and then awaken to it. And your first exchange of what you made for what you want is the exchange of nightmares for happy dreams of life. In these lie your true perceptions, for the Holy Spirit corrects the world of dreams where all perception is. Knowledge needs no correction, yet the dreams of love lead unto knowledge. And in these happy dreams, you see nothing fearful, and because of this, they are the welcome that you offer to knowledge. Love waits on welcome, not on time. And the real world is but your welcome of what always was. Therefore, the call of joy is in it, in these happy dreams, and in your glad response is your awakening to what you have not lost. This is the idea that peace is here now, joy is here now, love is here now, holiness is here now. But am I aware of it? Am I even willing to be aware of it? It never left us, and we never really left it, but our awareness of it sure as hell did. Therefore, the call of joy is in it, and in your glad response is your awakening to what you have not lost. And one last thing, just before we get into this material, this is from the chapter section immediately before what we're going to be studying today. The real world still is but a dream, except the figures have been changed. They are not seen as idols which betray. And idols here are anything that we value that we're viewing as our salvation that isn't really of God. That can be the body I think I have. It can be the relationship I think I'm in. It can be the job I think I have. All things that are idols are things that I think will save me from attack, violence, insanity, but they exist in dreams. And the point here is that except the figures in the dream of the real world are not seen as idols which betray. It is a dream in which no one is used to substitute for something else or interpose between the thoughts the mind perceives and what it sees. In other words, my thoughts have not left their source. I'm actually finally accepting that my thoughts have not left their source, which is my mind. I haven't projected them out there and experiencing them coming back at me from the world. No one is used for something he is not, for childish things have all been put away. And what was once a dream of judgment, we're going to talk a lot more about that today, has now been changed into a dream where all is joy. Because joy is the purpose that it has. Only forgiving dreams can enter here into the real world. For time is almost over, and the forms which enter into the dreams are now perceived as brothers, not in judgment, but in love. That's where we're going today as a practical matter. How do we get to that kind of experience? And so, again, we are in the text, chapter 30, section 1. And what I just read is an example of what it says in the first sentence, the new beginning. The new beginning is, how do we get to the real world? How do we change our minds enough to experience the real world? To have primarily and ultimately only forgiving thoughts, instead of, at best, a mix of unforgiving and forgiving thoughts. So the new beginning now becomes the focus of the curriculum. The goal is clear, but now you need specific methods for attaining it. The goal, I just read about, the real world. The goal is happy dreams. The goal is awakening to the truth of who and what I am, along with everybody else that I perceive. The goal is peace. That is the motivation for this course, is the attainment and sustaining the state of peace. The goal is clear, but now you need specific methods for attaining it. And the speed by which the goal can be reached is individual, depending only on this, your willingness to practice every step. We are literally going to get a step-by-step instruction today. He's laying it out very clearly. Each step will help a little every time it is attempted, and together these steps will lead you from dreams of judgment to forgiving dreams, out of pain and fear. These steps are not new to you, but they are more ideas than rules of thought as you yet to you as yet. So now we need to practice them a little while until they are the rules by which you live. We need to make them habits now, so that you will have them ready and for any need. Does that sound practical? Again, the course is very simple. This literally comprises 4 rolled up steps. Step 4 is broken down into 4 different parts. But again, the course, the ideas of the course are very simple. In practice, they're not easy to put into place. But here he's giving us very explicit instructions about how to do it. And again, all it's requiring is our willingness to try. It's not requiring mastery, but the more we practice it, the greater mastery we attain, the closer to mastery we get. And so I urge you to not beat yourself up and make you feel even more guilty when you blow it. In the middle of this, actually not even in the middle of it, he acknowledges that you will blow it. and then he goes into how do you correct it when you blow it. Again, extraordinarily practical. So, paragraph 2 begins, decisions are continuous. Is that news to anybody? They are continuous. Our thinking, our mind is always going on, even when we're dreaming. Decisions, as long as, remember, so long as we believe that we have separated ourselves from God, as long as we believe we have separated ourselves from one another, as in separate ourselves from Christ, so long as we believe that we exist in a universe of duality, there are decisions to be made. There appear to be choices to be made. And what he's telling us is that in the context of the illusion, in the context of a dualistic experience, our minds are continuously making decisions. Decisions are continuous. You do not always know when you are making them, but with a little practice in the ones you recognize, a set begins to form which sees you through the rest. A set, he's referring to a mindset or a mental set. In Buddhism, I think it might be referred to as a mental formation, a mental process that is sort of codified, or that has become a habit. It's something that the mind has habituated as a response to a situation or circumstance. A set begins to form, which will see you through the rest. And it is not wise to let yourself become preoccupied with every step you take. But the proper set, adopted consciously each time you wake, so he's inviting us, encouraging us to do this in the morning when we wake up, as soon as we can. The proper set, the proper practice of this mental formation, this process, this mental process, adopted consciously each time you wake, will put you well ahead. And if you find resistance strong and dedication weak, you are not ready. And he implores us to not fight ourselves. That does not mean he's inviting us to give up and just say, okay, today's going to just be whatever it's going to be. I'm just going to take it as it comes. No. He's asking us to become mindful, to become aware of what it is we truly desire. And at the simplest level, do I want to have this day be peaceful? Do I want this day to contain an experience of joy? Do I want to feel grateful and satisfied today? Really basic questions that he's encouraging us to ask ourselves consciously when we wake. And another sentence that really summarizes this the resistance to having the kind of day you want. The kind of day, another example of the kind of day you want is to feel a deep contentment, a certainty of help, and a calm assurance that heaven goes with you. So he's asking us to get very real and honest with ourselves about what kind of day, what kind of experiences do I want to have during this coming day? And they can be very specific, so long as they're not an excuse to come up with an ego script for how someone else or some situation has to behave or a particular outcome. I mean, if it is a wholly harmless and helpful outcome that you're desiring, that's one thing. But if it's just another way for the ego to find control of somebody or something else, that's not it. So if you find resistance strong and dedication weak, you are not ready. And do not fight yourself, but think about the kind of day you want. And tell yourself, there is a way which this very day can happen just like that. And then try to have the day you want. So now we get to the first step. The first instruction, the outlook, this new beginning starts with this. Today, I will make no decisions by myself. What this really means, what this really means, the translation of today I will make no decisions by myself, is code for today I will make decisions with the Holy Spirit and only the Holy Spirit as my guide. We will get to this. I'm gonna provide a spoiler alert right now, because the point he makes several paragraphs on is that it is impossible for us, having this dualistic experience of being in the world, to make decisions by ourselves. He emphatically says it is impossible for us to make decisions by ourselves. We're either making a decision with the ego thought system, or we're making a decision with the Holy Spirit's thought system. The default guide for most people on the planet in this point in time is autopilot ego decision making. So this statement, today I will make no decisions by myself, is a declaration to stop that. It is a declaration that I am willing, I am motivated to have the Holy Spirit make decisions for me. So, today I will make no decisions by myself. This means you are choosing not to be the judge of what to do. But it must also mean you will not judge situations where you are called upon to make a response. For if you judge them, you have set the rules for how you should react to them, and then another answer cannot but produce confusion and uncertainty and fear. So, this is why we need to take a little sidebar here on the idea of judgment. Judgment here, the context for judgment is, again, making a decision, making a determination of what this person's behavior or this situation means as interpreted by the ego. So, Even though at the beginning of the day, I may be willing to declare, today I will make no decisions by myself. Again, that means I am willing to have the Holy Spirit be my guide for the day. Also means that I must be willing to not judge, aka not let the ego make the interpretation for how I respond to X, Y, Z when it comes up. And this is where it gets sticky, because this is where we're all going to get tripped up, because the ego is completely vigilant for any opportunity to have us go back to the default mode of siding with it. It happened to me as soon as I got in the car again. And it happened to me multiple times on the way over here. I was sure I was going to be late. I kept running into red lights. I kept running into all kinds of slow vehicles. And, you know, every time my autopilot was judgment. And I had to, since this was front and center in my mind, this is not the kind of day, this is not the kind of experience that I want to have. So that's one, that is what I just gave you is the ego's interpretation of situations and relationships is what the Course usually means by the word judgment. Because it usually results in some form of separation, condemnation, attack, projections of guilt, all of the stuff that we're very familiar with. And as we talked about last week in Anna's class and the week before, there are two acceptable forms of judgment. Since our teacher, Yeshua, knows very well that we are addicted to judgment, he basically gives us two pieces of guidance for how to judge and not hurt ourselves. One is to judge how it is I'm feeling. In other words, pay attention to how I'm feeling, and we will get to this later in the decision-making set of rules. If I don't like how I feel, that means that I must not be in alignment with the Holy Spirit's thought system, because God's will for me is happiness. I must not be fulfilling my function, because my function and my happiness are one. So, one right use of judgment is to pay attention and judge how it is I'm feeling. And as a reference point, I'm going to circle back to a line I used a few minutes ago. Whenever you feel fear in any form, and you are fearful, if you do not feel a deep contentment, a certainty of health, a calm assurance of heaven, that heaven goes with you, be sure you made an idol and believe it will betray you.
I don't know what that is.
It just means that I have made a judgment.
Did you say where is it?
Where is that?
Oh, that is in the chapter, the page before the one we're on.
Okay.
The second to the last paragraph of the very last section in chapter 20.
Okay.
Thank you. I didn't hear the question was where. Was it? The other appropriate use of judgment is articulated very clearly in chapter 12, the first and second sections, judgment of the Holy Spirit. And that this is the idea that we've talked about many, many times before, is that when the Holy Spirit is looking at a situation, it only sees love or a call for healing and health. Another way to say that, the Holy Spirit only sees love or a call for love. So those are two appropriate, according to the Course, according to our teacher, two appropriate uses of judgment. The first one is an interpretation of how the world appears to be coming at me. And the other is more internal, an interpretation of how I'm feeling, typically in response to something that seems to be coming at me from the world. As opposed to the typical ego judgments, which are condemnation, separation in some form, projection of guilt and attack. Okay, so paragraph 4, at least in the purple covered edition, it's formatted a little bit different in the blue covered edition. This is your major problem now. You still make up your mind and then decide to ask what you should do. What that means is that I've already interpreted that guy that just cut me off in traffic has to be an asshole. And how can I feel better about my belief, my firm belief that this guy's an asshole? I've already made up my mind about what the situation is, who the bad actor is, and what my response is to it. I've already judged the situation. This is my major problem now. I still make up my mind about what this means, and then I decide to ask Spirit for how to help, what I should do about this situation, because I've already made it real to me. This is our major problem now. And what you hear, meaning what you hear from the Holy Spirit, may not resolve the problem as you first saw it, because I've already decided what it meant. And this leads to fear. Hearing this other answer leads to fear because it contradicts what I perceive. And so I feel attacked and therefore angry. There are rules by which this will not happen, but it does occur at first to everyone who listens well. So he's just acknowledging you're going to trip up. The ego is going to trip you up. The ego thought system is absolutely like the Terminator. It will not stop. It can be dissolved away, but we have to be willing to let our mind be guided by a completely different thought system in order for that dissolution to happen. In the meantime, the ego is relentless in finding ways to trip us up and pull us back into the darkness, to pull us back into ego judgment and thinking. Yeshua is just acknowledging that this is the case, and he knows it's true because he had the experiences for himself. So step 2. Step 1 was, today I will make no decisions by myself, which means, anybody?
Joining with the Holy Spirit.
Exactly. We're going to join with the Holy Spirit as our guide for decision making. So now step 2, throughout the day, at any time you think of it and have a quiet moment for reflection, tell yourself again the kind of day you want, the feelings you would have, the things you want to happen to you, the things you would experience, and say, if I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given to me. Given to me. Not something I have to make happen, not something I have to earn. It is the day that will be given to me because of my willingness to side with the Holy Spirit's thinking. It sounds like a pretty good payoff to me. If only I believe that in a moment, but I'm triggered. If I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given to me. So the second instruction is to remind ourselves periodically throughout the day about the decision that I hopefully made early in the morning about what kind of day I want to have. And he just gave us a short list of things you want to happen to you, the kind of day you want, the feelings you would have, the things you want to happen to you, the things you would experience. So these two procedures, step 1 and step 2, these two procedures practiced well will serve to let you be directed without fear. For opposition, meaning opposition from the ego, will not first arise and then become a problem in itself. So regarding these first two steps, again, this is the idea that when I'm deciding on the day that I want to have, it doesn't mean writing an ego script about how this person has to do this and behave this way, this person has to do that and behave this way, so that I can get the satisfaction that I want of my script being fulfilled. That is not what it means. He's really asking us about what is the internal experience I want to have. Do I want to have peace? Do I want to experience joy? Do I want to, and let's remind ourselves again what peace according to the Course means. It means complete or total satisfaction. Complete or total satisfaction. Can you imagine being completely and totally satisfied and not being at peace? I don't think so. Those things have to go hand in hand. He's just turning it around so we understand that this is an equation. The two go hand in hand. Peace means total fulfillment, complete and total fulfillment, satisfaction. So, these two procedures practice well to serve to let you be directed without fear, for opposition will not first arise and then become a problem in itself. So here, I can imagine that there are some yes buts. And he's going to address them right now. He's got our number. He literally does. But there will be times when you have judged already. Happened to me at least 5 or 6 times just on the trip over here this morning. At least. Those are just the ones that I was aware of. But there will be times when you have judged already. And now the answer will provoke, meaning now my answer will, the answer from the Holy Spirit will provoke attack. No, sorry. I will have judged already, and the ego's answer will provoke attack unless you quickly straighten out your mind to want an answer that will actually work. I inserted the word there, that will work. Be certain this has happened if you feel yourself unwilling to sit by and ask to have the answer given you. This means you have decided, if you're unwilling to sit by, this means you have decided by yourself, meaning I've decided with the ego I've decided with the ego to judge this situation and interpret it according to the ego's thought system. And I cannot see the question. This was extraordinarily confusing to me reading the Foundation for Inner Peace version. Cannot see the question because I have already made up my mind what the situation means. Yes, Lisa.
Sorry.
No, please. I'm surprised it's taken this long for there to be questions, honestly.
So we're supposed to decide the kind of day that we want, but yet we can't make a decision.
No, that's not what it's saying. We're being asked to decide what kind of day we want. And then if something comes up in our experience of the day that requires yet another decision, remember at the very beginning of this chapter, it says, well, the second paragraph, decisions are continuous. Decisions means, but before I make a decision, there's a question. Which way should I go?
So give an example, like you wake up in the morning, you're like, I want to have a happy day.
Yes.
But that's still a decision.
Yes, it is. Yes.
But
So
what's the question before that?
The question before that is, what kind of day do I want to have?
Isn't the question before that which voice am I going to listen to?
Yes. Which voice am I going? Step number 1. Today I will make no decisions by myself, which is a decision to choose the Holy Spirit as our guide. We can circle back to this if you're still confused.
So can I just make sure I'm regurgitating? I'm just regurgitating those the two steps. The first step is really the question of which voice, am I going to listen to ego or spirit? And then the second is the question I'm going to answer, like what kind of day am I going to have? Correct?
Yes, well, yeah, I guess you can break it down that, yes, yes. There is a decision before that, yes, there is a decision about what kind of day I want to have. I'm going to choose the, yes. Thank you for articulating that. The 0 point question is who's going to be my guide? Then the next question is what kind of day do I want to have?
I've actually been studying this for a little bit, and I think I've been reading the Blue Book, and it's so helpful, I think, to have the footnotes.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that number 8 down there is really powerful
In the purple book?
in the Purple Book about the real question that I ask the Holy Spirit should be an open-ended one. And instead of asking, like, what should I do, when we're in our ego, it says we're looking at how can I get my way here. So that kind of helps me to determine, like, if I'm trying to get my way and I'm like, how can I make this situation fit so I get what I want, then I'm fully in my ego.
Yep.
Instead of being really open-minded and surrendering and admitting that I can have the answer given to me. So I don't have this predefined idea of what it should look like.
You want to go ahead and just read footnote 8?
Yeah, footnote 8 says, the real question you ask the Holy Spirit should be an open-ended one that does not assume a particular judgment of the situation before you. According to the above sentence, the reason you cannot see the real question is because your question assumes your judgment of the situation. As a result, rather than what should I do here, your question may amount to some version of how can I get my way here. As the paragraph says later, the sign that this has happened is if you feel yourself to be unwilling to sit by and ask.
Gentry?
I had a thought and then I got distracted. So what I hear is a really complicated way of saying trust and surrender. So simplifying that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to address whichever step it was. I wasn't tracking 1 or 2, but the one about judging yourself. I don't associate with the word judging as a positive, but I guess I see that as awareness of, like you said, if it's traffic, whatever the thing, those passive thoughts that we hope no one else can hear, and then we realize, oh, that's probably not the nicest thing to say or think.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I'm guessing that a lot of people are this way, especially if you've been through enough in your life, that we're our own harshest, most critical, to ourselves. So giving ourselves grace and not needing to place guilt and shame on ourselves, but just awareness, transmuting that to awareness instead of judgment, at least in the negative context.
Transmuting it or bringing it to awareness first and allowing it to be transformed from a dream of judgment to a dream of love, or from an unforgiving thought to a forgiving thought. We're starting to get a little feedback again.
Can I just ask another question?
Yes.
When I think of judgment, I don't necessarily think of something negative. I think of something that's just, it could be my story, right? So it might even be like something that feels really good, but I'm like, oh, this person or this situation happened for my benefit. But it's still me creating a story. Is judgment ever positive in that way? That
if I get so attached to that idea that there's like this positive outcome, then I'm unwilling to surrender it.
I guess you could extend the word judgment to that. I think the course would be more specific in identifying that as an idol. In other words, my self-concept, my story is an idol that I've made to protect my thought system and belief that I am separate and autonomous and independent. That's what I hear and what you said, Heather, is a pretty clearly aligned with the definition the course gives for an idol, which of course depends on judgments per the ego. Yes, Carl?
I think one of the challenges with A Course in Miracles is in A Course in Miracles, almost all words are neutral. And the whole Course in Miracles intentionally uses those words so that we can reprogram them in our mind. So it does say judge for yourself, right? But our mental training oftentimes makes the word judge linked to negative judgment. And so what A Course in Miracles is intentionally using these words to help soften their impact within us so that we see we have choice.
Exactly. And the choice ultimately comes down to what advisor am I going to choose to make my judgments with? And again, I submit to you that for 99.9% of the world's population, at this point in history, the autopilot default setting is ego judgment, the ego advisor. And we are being asked to first recognize that we actually have a choice of advisors to pick from, and then be willing to ask a question about what does this mean? And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this, but let's keep going with the questions. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I think it's good to know that if you don't make a choice to decide to join with the Holy Spirit, you will automatically fall into the ego thought system.
Exactly. That is the default mode for all of us, unless we are really enlightened. At least unless we have really attained enlightenment. I mean, I'm certainly not there yet. I'm a long way from it, I can tell you. So,
Now, what paragraph are you on?
I am trying to find my way to that.
Remember once again,
Okay, in the purple covered edition, it is paragraph 8. And backing up just a little bit, now you need a quick, so what we're working on now is now I've made a decision, I feel like crap because I've made a negative judgment about someone or something that's going on and I'm not liking how I feel right now. And so now I need a quick restorative before I ask. Ask, what does this mean? How would you have me see this? Is what he's asking. Remember once again, the day you want, and recognize that something has occurred which is not part of it. And then realize that you have asked a question by yourself, which again is code here for I have asked a question by myself means I have defaulted to asking a question and having it answered by the ego. And must have set an answer in my, aka my ego terms. And so the quick restorative, the first step in the quick restorative is I have no question, I forgot what to decide. This confused the hell out of me when I was reading just the blue covered edition. What do you mean I have no question?
I don't question it.
I don't question it. I already decided it. But because it wasn't, I was so far beyond recognizing that I already made a decision, that I already given myself the answer for the question that I obviously asked before, that I couldn't even see, what do you mean I have no question? There's no question here. I know what this guy did. But the point of this step 3 here, I have no question, I forgot what to decide. The point of those two statements taken together is that I have already judged. And so there is no question. I have no question because I've already judged and decided what this means and made it real to me. And so this is a step to step back away from that. This is, or at least it is a step to make me stop and consider turning around from the path that I'm on deeper into darkness. And I forgot what to decide means I forgot to remember what kind of this day I already decided earlier that I wanted to have today. Because what's happening to me now, what I'm experiencing right now, ain't a part of it. So these two statements, I had no question and I forgot what to decide, are intended to be a wake-up call that I must have decided wrongly because I'm not at peace. I made the decision myself, but I could also decide otherwise. I will to decide otherwise because I want to be at peace. And I do not feel guilty because the Holy Spirit will undo all the consequences of my wrong decision if I will let Him. And I choose to let Him by allowing Him to decide for God, for me. That is the prayer that I mentioned 2 weeks ago. It's at the very end of chapter 5 in both books. I've since verified it. Last page of chapter 5 in both books, both versions of the course. That has been my go-to prayer for many, many situations, and it works. I have no question. I forgot what to decide. That is my, if I'm willing to remember that, that's the beginning of at least no longer digging the hole deeper that I've gotten myself into. So these two statements, I have no question, I forgot what to decide, cancels out the terms which I have now recently set, and lets the answer, meaning the answer from the Holy Spirit, show me that the question must have, what the question must have already been. What the question must have already been was, I would prefer to be right than happy. If I'm upset because XYZ happened and this is no longer a part of the day that I had asked to be given to me because of my willingness to decide to choose the Holy Spirit as my advisor for the day, somewhere along the line, I decided that I would prefer to be right than happy. That is what the question must have really been. Yes, Brian.
Yeah, I heard this from, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard this from somebody that was so good. It was like, the ego thought system and the Holy Spirit, they think of the Holy Spirit.
Speak a little louder because it's not coming through the
Okay,
speakers.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, they're autonomous. Once you're in the mind of the ego thought system, you don't know anything of the Holy Spirit. And when you're with the Holy Spirit, you don't know anything of the ego thought system. So without that original deciding, you just go with the flow. Yeah.
Again, autopilot,
Autopilot.
ego autopilot.
Ego pilot. Ego pilot.
I think that mic's dead.
That,
It was turned the wrong way.
So then the additional guidance for this third rule for decision. Try to observe this rule. I have no question. I forgot what to decide. Without delay, despite your opposition. You have already gotten angry, and your fear of being answered in a different way, being answered by the Holy Spirit, from what your version of the question asked, will gain momentum. Until you believe the day you want is one in which you will get your answer your way. Again, this is means I'm going deep into I want to be right instead of happy. I know what happened. I saw it for myself, and I forgot that I interpreted it with the ego thought system because I'm on autopilot. I know what happened, and I'm going to decide or not to do anything to correct it. But I mean, ultimately, I'm likely to condemn what happened, which is really, again, just the world coming back at me, reflecting back to me what I must have thought already. So, and you will not get it because for it will destroy the day by robbing you of what you really want. What I really wanted was to feel peace, to experience peace. What I really wanted was to experience joy. But this, he's acknowledging, this can be very hard to realize when once you have decided by yourself the rules which promise you, this can be very hard to realize when. Once you have decided by yourself, meaning with the ego, the rules which promise you a happy day, but these decisions can still be undone by simple methods which you can accept. And so this is now we're getting into the real nitty-gritty. These next four, they're all rolled up into step 4, but these next 4 parts are probably the most important practical guidance we can get here today, because every single one of us is going to have experiences on a daily basis, probably multiple times a day, when we've decided with the ego. And so this is where I have to go to first, step 4, because usually step 3 isn't enough. Again, that whole idea, I have no question, I forgot what to decide, usually isn't enough to pull me out of the dark hole that I've already dug for myself. And so that's where these 4 combined parts of step 4 I have found extraordinarily helpful, and I invite you to write these down, put them on a note in your car or wherever you're most triggered. And for me, it's computer problems and traffic problems. And third on the list is, anybody I deal with. But since I'm living alone at home, I don't often have to deal with that often. So this is the really juicy stuff. Step 4A. If you are so unwilling to receive an answer from the Holy Spirit that you cannot even let your question go, you can begin to change your mind with this. So this is now getting to one of the correct uses of judgment that I articulated at the beginning of class. At least I can decide I do not like what I feel now. Let me remind you again. Whenever you feel fear in any form, and you are fearful, if you do not feel a deep content, a certainty of help, a calm assurance of heaven goes with you. You don't feel that. You're feeling fear in some form. If you are so unwilling to receive a divine answer, you can begin to change your mind with this. At least I can decide that I do not like how I feel now. This much is obvious and paves the way for the next easy step. Having decided that you do not like the way you feel, what could be easier than to continue with? And so I hope that I have been wrong. My problem right now is because I have decided I would rather be right about my interpretation of what happened and what this means. I would rather be right about all of that stuff that my ego made up than to be happy. And so the restorative, the answer that he's giving to us, the restorative corrective step to that is, and so I hope that I have been wrong. Kelly.
Good morning.
Morning.
What the hell do we get out of being right? Like, if I, think that whatever I chose to do for today was the right thing, and isn't that great? I'm right. Like, how far down that path can we go? I don't think I've gone down that path. Does that make sense? Like, it just feels good to be right, and then what? Like, if we're studying A Course in Miracles, I don't know. Like, what
Well,
do we get out of being right?
there really isn't a good answer to that, other than, as we were discussing, I think last week in Anna's class, the only way to be right and happy is to side with the Holy Spirit thought system 24/7, 365. So there is no good answer for the desire to be right per the ego thought system, but be honest with yourself and say, even if you can intellectualize that, how often do you behave otherwise?
Right.
Carla.
Course in Miracles does tell us in other places that we also think there's a payoff to us being right. And so we're attached to that payoff. And sometimes, for me, I want to be right because I just need to get rid of the energy in me, right? I want a reason to yell. So because you did something stupid and cut me off in the street, now I have a reason to release that. And so sometimes that's the payoff we think is there. It's an erroneous thought system, but that's a lot of times why we do hold on.
Yeah, the body tends to hold on to this anger and rage, and the ego attempts to keep a lid on it up until a point where boom, the trigger gets pulled.
What I'm hearing in this lesson is, it was kind of mentioned before, that we're very caught up in our stories, but unpopular opinion, I feel like society has conditioned us to normalize being addicted to chaos, drama, always looking for something wrong. So even if there is good and there is peace, we're always looking for the next problem. And I just find it really almost maybe entertaining, or just like, why people, when you yell at the people in traffic or you yell at the sports team on the TV, they can't hear you. Like, it's just your own chaos you're creating for yourself. So why do we do it?
Well, it's that old thing about taking poison and expecting the other one to die. It makes no sense. It's insane, but we do it anyway. I mean, it's just what you articulated to me is just another example of those sorts of behaviors, are just another example of how we behave insanely.
Right.
Yes, Heather.
I think part of if I want to be right, my ego loves that so much because it just makes me feel really good. Like, oh, look, I told you so. Look how much better I am than you. Like, all of those ideas really, my ego loves to latch on to. So that's what I would say.
There are definitely payoffs to believing I'm right and wanting to believe that I'm right.
I need you to speak up a little bit.
Okay.
I think your voice is getting tired.
So I hope I have been wrong. This works against your sense of opposition. It reminds you that help is not being thrust upon you, but is something you want and that you need because you do not like the way you feel. So step 4A and step 4B comprise this tiny opening will be enough to let you go ahead with just a few more steps you need to let yourself be helped. So 4C, now you have reached the turning point. If I am willing to say, I do not like how I feel now, and so I hope that I have been wrong, I have reached a turning point. And the metaphor for that I used earlier is I've stopped digging the hole I'm digging for myself. Now you've reached the turning point because it has occurred to you that you will gain if what you decided is not so. In other words, what I judged to be my interpretation of the situation XYZ is not so. Until this point is reached, you will believe your happiness depends on being right. But this much you have now attained. You would be better off if you were wrong. That's what these first two parts of step 4 mean. I have allowed enough sanity into my mind to recognize that I would be better off if I was frickin' wrong. This tiny grain of wisdom will suffice to take you further. You are not coerced, but merely hope to have the thing you want, meaning get back on track with the day that I asked for, that I decided that I wanted at the beginning of the day, and hopefully have been reminding myself throughout the day that something is now on. And so we can say now in perfect honesty after, so this is now step 4C. I can now say in perfect honesty, I want another way to look at this. I want another way to look at this. Why? Because I am not at peace. I am no longer happy. I am no longer joyful. I am no longer experiencing things that I decided this morning I wanted to experience. So now you have changed your mind about the day and have remembered what you really want. Its purpose has no longer been obscured by the insane belief you want it for the goal of being right when you are wrong. Thus is the readiness for asking brought to your awareness. For asking, what does this mean? How can I look at this a different way that doesn't disturb my peace? Thus is the readiness for asking brought to your awareness, for you cannot be in conflict when you ask for what you want and see that it is this for which you ask. Which leads us now to step 4D, the last part of step 4. Step 4 is this restorative, when I have gone off the deep end in some form of insanity of wanting to be right instead of happy. This final step is but acknowledgement of lack of opposition to be helped. I'm no longer actively opposing my willingness to ask for help in reinterpreting this situation so that I can get back on track with the day that I wanted to have, that I want to have. This final step is a statement of an open mind, not certain yet, but willing to be shown. Perhaps there's another way to look at this. What can I lose by asking? So there we have 4 simple steps to get out of the hole we've dug for us, to get out of the sand trap, whatever metaphor you want. to get back out of the trap door that I sprung for myself. At least I can decide I do not like how I feel now, and so I hope that I have been wrong, and I want another way to look at this, and perhaps there is another way to look at this. What can I lose by asking? This means that I am no longer, my awareness is no longer down at the level of effect, acting as a puppet of the ego. I have now remembered by doing these 4 steps that I have choices to make. I am the decision maker. I am a mind, not a body, that is a victim of the world I see. I have decisions that I can make. I can choose the ego thought system to be my advisor, or I can choose the Holy Spirit to be my advisor. And if I want the day that I asked for at the beginning of the day, I know that I have to be willing to let the ego thought system go and listen only to the Holy Spirit. These 4 steps are signifying my willingness and actually represent a shift of my mind's awareness from being an ego body puppet, if you will, to actually being a mind that has the power to decide what kind of day I actually want and who I want to be my guide for having that day. Which, remember, we were told the day will be given to us. But the day will not be given to us by following the ego thought system. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I think these 4 steps, I encourage you to write these things down and put them in places where you know you're triggered, where you're likely to fall into an ego trap of wanting to be right. So that you have a prompt. You have a prompt right there for how to stop and turn around and start heading back towards the light instead of deeper into the darkness.
Just a quick funny story. I was, speaking of driving, I was driving past the Rocky Stadium this weekend, and I was kind of caught between lights because there was so much traffic. And the guy behind me was honking, and I was in my ego, and I flipped him off. And then I realized, because there was all these kids, it must have been opening weekend, because there was all these kids in their uniforms, and they were all screaming and waving, and I was just like, what's going on? And then they honk again, and both sides, they're like waving, and I was like, oh, that wasn't about me. I felt like an idiot, but I was like, oh, it is what it is, right? That's the moments that just kind of make you realize, like, it's not always about you.
Oh my God.
I just wanted to share, I drove for my profession, I was a driver, and I had to overcome like being upset with people on the road because they saw my vehicle and automatically took advantage of me. And so it caused a lot of anxiety, my 8 hours a day in this truck. Like all these people are cutting me off and taking advantage and taking my right of way and doing a lot of work on that. I shifted my perspective, and it has completely changed the way that I drive and the way that I feel on a day-to-day basis. And it is like, if someone gets in front of me, like, oh, I'm so glad that you had the space, that I left you the space there to be in front of me. And so
I
just
need to hire you as a consultant. I need you as a co-pilot.
I would absolutely love to do that for you, Matt. But I think that everyone, I just started a new job driving, and I had to take a defensive driving class, and it was so horrible. Being on in front of the computer, my eyes were red, and anyway, it reminded me of these rules that I have forgotten. It was a really good thing once I was able to reflect on it. Like just instead of 4 car spaces, allow the 3 seconds. So, see a stationary object and count 3 seconds. And it's a lot of space. It's so much space. And it's also so beautiful because if I don't believe that I'm in a hurry, if I don't believe that I'm running late, because I'm gonna get there safely and I'm gonna get there with my peace intact, right? I'm gonna allow that space and 7 different people can get in front of me and it's okay, right? Like I'm still gonna make it to my destination and I'm gonna arrive there with my peace and completely safe. And it is truly like, as I'm sitting here listening to traffic, everyone is so frustrated in traffic and it's like, the ego wants me to be on edge and gripping that steering wheel so hard. And the Holy Spirit wants me to be at ease and at peace and know that I will arrive at my destination at the exact moment that I'm supposed to. The light is going to turn red because I don't need to be through this intersection yet. The light will be green when it is my turn to be there. So I just invite that for everyone.
Thank you for sharing the miracle that you've received, the shift from fear to love.
Yes, I need to share this.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your miracle.
I think that was a great metaphor. Yes. Such a wonderful metaphor, right? If I decide where I'm going, I'm gonna get to there happily, right? I'm gonna get to the end of my day happily, or I'm gonna get to the end of my day cranky, right? That is that decision. Matt, could you do a quick recap of the steps since that was long, just kind of what that looks like?
Yep, I think that's a perfect thing to do with these last few minutes because there is no time left today to go through the rest of this section, but we've covered the essence of it. And so I think that's a great idea. Let's do that now. So step number 1 is basically, today I will make no decisions by myself. It is saying that, again, this is an acknowledgement that I have a choice of which advisor I'm going to choose to use to guide my day. And making decisions by myself is code for being on ego autopilot. So today I will make no decisions by myself means that I am voluntarily electing to allow the Holy Spirit to guide my decision making today. Step number 2 is the reinforcement and acknowledgement of this. If I make no decisions by myself, in other words, if I am willing to let the Holy Spirit be my guide, this is the day that will be given to me. Between those 2 steps was the reflection about what kind of day I wanted to have. So today I will make no decisions by myself, step 1. Step 2, if I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given me. That's the setup for the day. Those are the things that we're being asked to reflect on and state internally or externally. And I invite you to consider that the words have power if you say them out loud. Have more power if you say them out loud. Go ahead and have a conversation with the Holy Spirit. Let me get through this, Heather, and then we can circle back because we're running out of time. And then, so those are the first, that's the setup. That in there was also embedded in there was reflecting, contemplating on the type of day we wanted to have. Step 3 now assumes that something's gone wrong, because we learned at the beginning of this section that my willingness to be guided by the Holy Spirit doesn't mean just at the beginning of the day, because decisions are continuous. Shit's gonna happen. Just put it that way. Shit is gonna happen, and then I'm gonna be called upon to either slide back into ego autopilot, or hopefully decide with the Holy Spirit. And one of the ways to get back to siding with the Holy Spirit is, I have no question, I forgot what to decide. Meaning, I've already judged what this situation means, because I've already slipped back into being an ego autopilot advisor, and I've forgotten about the kind of day that I wanted to have, because I'd rather be right than happy. And if step 3 is not enough, we have 4 parts to step 4. If I'm so unwilling to do step 3, this is the fallback. At least I can decide I do not like how I feel now, and so I hope that I am wrong. I want another way to look at this, and perhaps there is another way to look at this. What do I have to lose by asking? To get back into the experience of the kind of day I asked for at the beginning, what do I have to lose by asking? What do I have to lose by being willing to hope that I have been wrong in my interpretation, meaning my interpretation via the ego thought system, my willingness to actually hope that I have been wrong and want another way to look at this. What do I have to lose by asking for another way to look at this? That's the summary. You still have a question?
Well, it's more of a statement about step 2. In that I think that's almost like the most important step in this to me, because in the same way, like we practice our coping skills when we're calm and when we're not triggered, so that we then like can easily access them. I think like what it says, like anytime you have a quiet moment and you think of it, anytime you think of it and have a quiet moment for reflection, is when you repeat again like what kind of day, and that's the part I think that keeps us from having to go through the whole rest of steps, like 3 and 4, right? It's like the more we practice that.
Thank you for saying that, Heather. That's absolutely correct. You know, the step 2, whenever we have a moment of peace, a quiet moment to reflect, to reinforce the decision I made at the beginning of the day, is important, because what this is ultimately leading us to get to the point of is having this set of rules is something we practice. The first 2 are things that we practice when we're quiet, when we're mindful, when things are peaceful, when the world doesn't seem to be coming at us. Practicing those things now is developing a spiritual muscle to keep us out of the state of traps, to keep us out of digging the hole of being triggered by traffic or whatever the situation is. And steps 3 and step 4 are just Yeshua acknowledging shit's going to happen, you're going to respond the way you always have, and here's the way you get out of it. And the sum total of these 4 steps is a way to attain peace and sustain it. If it's lost for a moment, there are steps there to get us back on track. So I think that's it for today. In the interest of time, we're going to move on to, this is potluck Sunday here at the Miracle
So
Center.
we're
and we have
going to
some
take
announcements.
a love offering, and for those who are online, you can go to rmmc-acim.org, and we have PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, just about any way. You can mail us a check if you want. We have some people that do that. And we did make a request at the beginning of the month for some one-time assistance, and we've had people really show up. And we're so grateful for that, so thankful for that. And I know that I am off camera and you can't see me, but that's okay. and continued need. You can probably tell that the air conditioner's not on. And so we have an internal, you're feeling the fan back there, Kelly, that's why. So Matt is working with the HVAC system. We don't know how quickly it will be fixed, but like I said, we're preparing for those big unexpected expenses. So just keep the Miracle Center in mind. And then I'm gonna start this with you, Brian. All right, let me take us down off of live and then I'll go over announcements.
Okay.